And that's why, as far as I remember, my karate chop is banned. Completely banned. Completely banned. In Iceland and Canada. It's because I karate chop so hard that I've actually decapitated people. Yeah. But it's like, it's what I do, you know? I just, yaw, real hard. And just, I mean, it ends lives, so. Hey, what's up? I'm Kris. Welcome back to the channel. This is Belisarius. This is... I can't say it now. Sassanid... It's just not coming to me. And I heard the word, but apparently I can't pronounce it. This is 5 of 6. This is 540 AD. And... Sassanid. I cannot remember how to say it. Well, they'll tell us. This is Epic History TV. I'm Kris. I've said it already. Video.
Khosrow, Sassanid king of Persia, is invading the Eastern Roman Empire. His huge army marches along the banks of the Euphrates River. Sura falls before them. Hierapolis is ransomed for 2,000 pounds of silver. Berea burns. Then, to the horror of all Romans, Khosrow takes Antioch, second city of the empire, the Roman capital of the Near East. The city burns. Soldiers flee. Civilians are massacred. The historian Procopius writes, "I become dizzy as I write about such a great calamity, and transmit it to future times to remember. I cannot understand why it should be God's will to exalt the fortunes of a man or place, and then to obliterate them for no cause that is apparent to us." After years of victories, Justinian's empire is rocked by this devastating onslaught. The emperor can send only his cousin Germanus and 300 soldiers, with a promise of a great army to follow. But there is no great army. Roman forces are tied down fighting Justinian's wars in the west. Instead, he will dispatch his greatest general, Belisarius, and pray for a miracle, little knowing that the empire is about to be plunged into an even greater catastrophe, unlike anything the world has ever seen before.
Flag.
First, a big thanks to our video sponsor, Endel. Any of us can struggle with stress, getting to sleep, maintaining focus.
Thank you, Wendell.
For sponsoring this video. Trouble had been brewing on Justinian's eastern frontier for years. The Eastern Roman and Sassanid empires, the two great powers of the Middle East, had signed a treaty of eternal peace just 8 years before. But
how long does a treaty of eternal peace last? Answer: 9 years? 8 years? Apparently, an eternal peace is what we call a lie.
Khosrow had looked on with growing alarm as Roman forces, led by Belisarius, had reconquered first North Africa, then Italy. Half in jest, Khosrow asks Justinian for his share of the tribute, since these victories are only possible because he's granted the Romans peace. But the joke is wearing thin. Khosrow receives envoys from the Goths in Italy and the Armenians, who beg him for aid. Justinian, they tell him, has conceived the desire of seizing the entire earth. He will march against the Persians with those he has already enslaved, respecting neither the name of friendship nor any of his sworn promises. In 540, Khosrow accuses the Eastern Emperor of paying Huns to raid Persian land and trying to bribe his Arab allies to switch sides. Then he attacks. Justinian has stripped the frontier of its best troops to
I'm fighting, trying to open some... Sorry. My nails aren't long enough, and it was just that you don't care, but that's why I look like a fool.
Enforce his army in Italy. There is no Roman force that can stand up to Khosrow's invasion. Antioch is sacked. Survivors are enslaved and sent to Persia.
What, this is completely unrelated, but what graphic is he using here? Is this like a video game? Because this is really cool. This has got to be a video game, right? This is really, it's really good.
Khosrow then marches to the coast and symbolically bathes in the waters of the Mediterranean. He moves on to Apamea, where he demands a...
Why is it symbolic to bathe there? I don't know these things, okay? I'm sorry, I apologize.
£1,000 of silver, but lets the priests keep their peace.
Wait a minute. Is that what Jesus did? Is that why? You'll tell me.
Of the true cross. He then fixes the local chariot race so that Justinian's favourite team, the Blues, lose. Justinian agrees to pay Khosrow £5,000 of gold, with 500 more to be paid annually in exchange for a truce. Satisfied, Khosrow sets off for home. However, he does not let the truce prevent him from extorting several more payments en route. It is the Eastern Roman Empire's greatest military humiliation in 3 centuries.
Wow.
Everyone was talking about Belisarius. He was credited with 2 victories such as never before fallen to the lot of one man. He had brought 2 kings captive to Constantinople, and beyond all expectation had made Roman spoils of the nations and wealth of Geseric and Theodoric.
Ow.
In the Eastern Roman capital, Belisarius has been welcomed back from Italy as a hero. He and his entourage draw admiring crowds wherever they go. But he does not have long to enjoy his success. In early 541, Justinian sends Belisarius east to take command of Roman forces in Syria and ensure there is no repeat of the previous year's disaster. Belisarius's wife, Antonina, has accompanied him on previous campaigns to North Africa and Italy and proved herself a valuable advisor and deputy. But this time, she remains in Constantinople to advise her friend and patron, Empress Theodora. Belisarius gathers all available forces at Dara, site of his great victory 11 years before. He has his own household troops, the elite Bucellari, Ostrogoths who've joined him in Italy, Rome's Sassanid Arab allies, led by Al-Harith, and several thousand Limitani, the Empire's frontier troops. Procopius does not tell us the size of these forces, so we can only make educated guesses based on circumstantial evidence. Local Roman forces are shaken by the events of the previous year. Belisarius spends several weeks reorganizing these men, re-equipping them, and rebuilding their shattered morale.
Yeah, I was just about to say, he had to rebuild their confidence. So sure, I get that. But they also have to be really hungry for a fight. Especially if you're under Belisarius' command. You have to feel like he's you know, not invincible, but there has to be this mental change of, you know, we got walked over before, we got beat before, but it's not going to happen now. You know, it's a change in your thought process and your motivation, your drive.
When Belisarius learns that Khosrow and the main Persian army are far away in the north, campaigning in Lazica, he decides to go on the offensive and targets the Persian city of Nisibis. This fortified frontier city is too strong to assault directly, but Belisarius hopes the garrison can be lured out and defeated in battle.
I thought that was a real picture at first. Man, whatever they're using for these graphics, it is good.
Allowing his troops to rush into the city, mingled with the retreating enemy. Belisarius camps 5 miles from Nisibis, close enough to tempt the Persians to attack, but far enough that they can't easily retreat back to the city. But one Roman commander, Peter, camps far too close. Worse, he ignores Belisarius' warning to be on high alert at noon, when the Persians are most likely to strike. The Persian commander, Nabides, spots this isolated Roman force and attacks. Peter immediately sends a rider to Belisarius calling for aid. But Belisarius and the rest of the army have already seen what's happening and are on their way. Before they can reach Peter, his force is hit by the Persian cavalry. After a brief fight, his troops scatter. 50 men are killed. A Roman standard is lost. When Belisarius arrives with reinforcements, he drives off the Persians, who retreat into the city, leaving behind more than 100 dead. But the loss of a Roman standard in such a pointless skirmish is a bitter blow. Belisarius marches on to the Persian fort at Sassanid. His first attack is repelled. He digs in for a siege, while ordering Al-Harith's Arabs and 1,200 Bukilari to cross the Tigris River and raid deep into Assyria. It has been many years since the Romans have raided this far into Persian territory. There is little resistance and much plunder. Sassanid runs out of food and surrenders to Belisarius. But the Roman general has run out of time. His troops are exhausted by the extreme summer heat, and a third are sick. His Limitani wish to return to their homes, now threatened by the start of the Arab raiding season, while Al-Harith and his men have gone AWOL. It later emerges they've ridden straight home to avoid sharing their loot with the Romans. Belisarius, having achieved as much as he can with his limited force, withdraws back into Roman territory. At the opening of spring, Khosrow, son of Kavad, for the 3rd time began an invasion into the land of the Romans with a large army, keeping the Euphrates River on the right. The Emperor Justinian, upon learning of the inroad of the Persians, sent Belisarius against them once more. 542 AD. Belisarius spends the winter in Constantinople, but in early spring, news arrives that Khosrow is preparing to invade again. Belisarius races back to the Eastern Front, using horses of the famous Cursus Publicus, the Roman postal service, with fresh remounts at every stage. A journey that normally takes a month can be completed in around 8 days.
Wow.
Local commanders warn that Khosrow is approaching with the biggest army yet. They want to hole up in Hierapolis and hide behind its strong walls.
So, okay. Didn't Justine, is that right? Justin, I'll call him Justin. Didn't he already pay this guy to not invade anymore? Was it just, okay, we won't invade anymore this year. I'll see you next year. Or is this a different guy? I think it's a different guy. Still, same country. Ish. Same kingdom. Well, same kingdom, we'll say. Unless this guy's looking for a payday. There was a lot of stuff that happened that's just ridiculous.
Belisarius has a different plan. If Khosrow were attacking any other people but Romans, this plan of yours would be safe and sensible. But as immediately after leaving here this barbarian plans to fall upon some other territory of the Emperor, be assured that to die bravely would be better in every way than to be saved without a fight. For this would justly be called not salvation, but treason. So come as quickly as possible to Europos, where, after collecting the whole army, I hope to deal with the enemy as God permits. Khosrow is counting on another lucrative plundering expedition. This time he plans to raid Palestine and pillage Jerusalem. But when he hears Belisarius himself has arrived and is gathering a Roman army at Europos, he hesitates. He sends an envoy, Abandanes, to meet Belisarius on the pretext of reopening negotiations, but really to gauge his strength. For almost the first time in 10 years, Procopius is not at Belisarius' side. He has remained in Constantinople. In fact, his days of campaigning with the great Roman general are over. Nonetheless, he provides a detailed description of what follows.
Why did he stop? Was it just age, or was he sick or something? Anyone know?
Belisarius meets Khosrow's envoy far from the Roman camp, surrounded by an imposing number of his most fearsome warriors, including Thracians, Illyrians, Goths, and Vandals. They have been hand-picked to make an impression. All are tall, strongly built men, armed to the teeth, and seem completely unconcerned by the arrival of a Persian envoy.
It's like if you were to just pick, like, Vikings, just stand behind you. Those guys are going to look extremely intimidating.
Belisarius himself speaks in a carefree manner. This course that Khosrow has chosen is not how men usually behave. If other men have a dispute with their neighbour, they first try to negotiate with him, and only go to war if they do not receive satisfaction. But he first comes into the midst of the Romans, and then makes suggestions about peace. With that, Belisarius dismisses the envoy. The envoy returns to Khosrow, and urges the king to avoid battle at all costs. The enemy are not like any men he's seen before. They are formidable and disciplined. Their commander is wise and imposing. The king should withdraw as soon as possible.
What a great... I can only imagine him truly sitting in a chair, having all these intimidating people, and just playing it up, wanting, hey, look, you grab an axe, maybe throw some blood on your face, I don't know. Just look intimidating. And they probably all did. And he's sitting in a chair, just sitting back, looks probably carefree. Sounds carefree, looks carefree, and just has this air of, yeah, we're going to go ahead and march down there and kill you. We're going to go ahead and get rid of you. I'm not saying that's what he said, but just having this thought of, if this is what you want, I mean, we'll be happy to go that route. I can totally see someone going down there and just looking at everyone and thinking, yeah, maybe we should just, let's go back home for a year or two and just see what happens. Like, that had, I wanted to be a fly on the tent wall for that conversation.
Khosrow takes his advice. The Persian army crosses the Euphrates and marches home.
Really?
Belisarius appears to have bluffed a stronger enemy into retreat and saved huge swathes of the empire from plunder and pillage. According to Procopius, the Romans praised Belisarius. He seemed to have achieved greater glory in their eyes by this feat than when he brought Gelimer or Witigis captive to Constantinople. In truth, it was an achievement of great importance and deserving great praise.
Yeah, he scared the enemy away. He didn't even have to fight. He scared them enough that they didn't want to fight. That's so much bigger. Like, there was no bloodshed, and then a bigger enemy left. If there was like 400 people, you'd be like, well, yeah, of course they should have left. But a larger military that you've already seen what they've done. They've ransacked your villages, and just him showing up scared them enough. It's pretty impressive.
At a time when all the Romans were hiding in terror behind their defenses.
Yeah.
Belisarius and his Bucalari, putting on a show that is so intimidating and deceptive that the Persian king abandons his campaign. It's a famous and memorable scene. But did it ever happen?
Oh no.
Many historians believe that something even more terrifying caused Khosrow's rapid withdrawal. He'd discovered the empire was riddled with plague.
Oh, wow.
Zoo Sleep is our all-natural sleep support supplement. Most people don't know this, but when you supplement with something like melatonin, it's actually a hormone that might interrupt your body's own natural.
That's interesting.
During these times, there was a pestilence, which came close to wiping out the whole of mankind. Now, in the case of all other scourges sent from heaven, some explanation or cause might be given by daring men. But for this calamity, it is quite impossible either to express in words or to conceive in thought any explanation, except indeed to refer it to God.
Was this the
sick?
Was this the Black Plague? Is that at this time? I don't know. I know, you know, I'm sure there's probably more than one plague, so if I just say that, some people might say, well, which one? Yeah, I don't know. I just know there was a Black Plague. Was that because of rats or mice or something? I don't remember. It's irrelevant right now.
6th century world is full of strange and mysterious phenomena. Sometimes even a highly educated man like Procopius can only record his observations and trust in God. Of the year 536, he wrote, "It came about during this year that a most dread portent took place. The whole year the sun gave forth its light without brightness, like the moon, and it seemed much like an eclipse, for its beams were not clear, nor like those it usually makes. From the time when this thing happened, men were free neither from war, nor pestilence, nor any other thing that brings death."
Real fast, stupid question. How is he getting the information to continue to write if he's not there? Is he paying someone to inform him? Is he getting, how is he getting the information? Or is it just, he's just hearing things that are third hand, fourth hand, fifth hand, and he's getting a lot of these things, and so he's piecing it together. He's getting a lot of different accounts, and then he's just piecing together how. Just, if anyone knows.
Experts now believe Procopius was observing the atmospheric aftermath of a massive volcanic eruption.
Oh, wow.
In fact, a cluster of volcanic activity around this date would help to trigger what's become known as the Late Antique Little Ice Age. Its impact is impossible to measure, but it may have contributed to food shortages and worsened the famine that Procopius witnessed in Italy. Such shortages made the population weaker and more vulnerable to what came next. It originated among the Egyptians who live in Pelusium. From there it branched out in two directions. The first moving to Alexandria and then the rest of Egypt. the second coming to the Palestinians who lived by the border of Egypt. Plague is first recorded in the Nile Delta in 541. It spreads across Egypt and into coastal Palestine. In spring 542, it reaches the imperial capital, Constantinople. It spreads rapidly across the empire. In 543, plague reaches Persian-ruled Armenia and the Kingdom of the Franks. Recently, plague victims have even been identified in Anglo-Saxon England. Procopius is in Constantinople when the plague strikes with full, terrifying force. They fell ill in the following way. Suddenly they became feverish. Some of them when they rose from sleep, others while they walked about or doing any small thing. The body did not change colour or become warm like a regular fever, nor did it burn up. Rather, at first the fever was so mild that it gave no cause for alarm, either to victims or the doctors who treated them. But then on the same day or the next, a bubonic swelling appeared. This happened around the groin, also inside the armpit, sometimes by the ears or the thigh. Some victims, Procopius writes, fall into a coma-like state, unable to feed or care for themselves. Others are seized by madness, shouting wildly and running into the streets. Some died immediately, others after many days. In some cases the body blossomed with dark pustules about the size of a lentil. These people did not survive a single day. They all died immediately. Many others suddenly began to vomit blood and perished immediately.
Oh my God.
I must also state that the most eminent doctors predicted that many would die who shortly afterwards were unexpectedly free of all sickness. They also claimed that many would survive who were destined to perish almost immediately. Thus there was no cause behind this disease that any human reason could grasp, for in all cases the outcome made little sense.
Does anyone know, aside from what it was, what was the percentage of people who died from getting this? Because I'm thinking, by how it sounds, it's got to be, what, 75%? But I mean, clearly it can't be that high. That would be ridiculous. But, my God. It's crazy.
DNA analysis of human remains from this and later pandemics has identified the cause of this terrifying disease, a deadly bacterium called Yersinia pestis. Procopius is at the center of the world's first bubonic plague pandemic. The second, 8 centuries later, is known as the Black Death.
Okay. So this was the bubonic plague, and then there was the Black Death. Okay. I do know about, I've heard about the bubonic plague, but the Black Death is what I know, I would say more of, but that's not correct. But, okay.
The peak of the pandemic lasts 3 months. On the very worst days, the death toll in Constantinople alone may be as high as 10,000. Between a third and half the city's population perish. Entire households are wiped out. The city's graveyards overflow, and corpses are crammed into city watchtowers.
Jesus.
It was not easy in those times to see anyone out and about, for all were holed up in their homes. If you happened to chance upon someone going out, he was carrying one of the dead. All work came to a standstill. The plague hits the empire's great cities hardest, but the pestilence also reaches deep into the countryside.
Just a stupid question. We've all just dealt with a pandemic. What would you rather have? COVID or the bubonic plague or Black Death? It's not a serious question because you don't want any of them. I don't know. Bubonic plague and bubonic plague and the Black Death. I don't know. I'm sure we could have probably come up with some sort of a vaccine, but I would say probably COVID more. You'd probably want that because we do have a little hold on it now. But I mean, 3 months, that's just sucks, period.
Then Emperor Justinian himself falls sick. News soon reaches the army in Syria. There are even rumors that the emperor is already dead. Belisarius and his generals discuss the situation, but we have no reliable information on what is said or by whom.
Yeah.
Justinian has no children. The succession will be an uncertain and dangerous time. Their own role may be decisive. They may even discuss who among them is best placed to succeed the emperor. Unexpectedly, Justinian makes a full recovery. But Empress Theodora has learned of the generals' meeting in Syria. Her informers tell her that Belisarius and another general, Buzes, had said they would not support any new emperor proclaimed in Constantinople. Theodora regards these words as treason, a clear sign they will turn against her if her husband should die.
What? They won't support a new emperor. There's nothing there that says that that's turning against. Man, people are stupid. I would look at it like they're not going to support anyone but me. Like, that's great. Some people, man.
Belisarius and Buzes are summoned to Constantinople for questioning.
Oh my gosh.
Theodora cannot prove their treason, but both men experience a sudden, dramatic fall from favor. Procopius claims that Buzes spends more than 2 years in a secret prison. Belisarius, the emperor's most successful general, escapes imprisonment, but his disgrace is total. He is dismissed from command and loses much of his fortune. His famed bucellari are split up and distributed amongst other commanders. Belisarius lives in Constantinople as a private citizen for more than a year, while abroad, Justinian's empire slides towards crisis. The plague has killed a multitude of Roman citizens and soldiers, and severely disrupted government, trade, and taxation. In Armenia, a Roman offensive ends in humiliating defeat. In North Africa, Berber rebels defeat the Romans and kill Solomon the governor. While in Italy, the Ostrogoths have rallied under a new king, Totila, retaken most of Belisarius's gains, and again threaten Rome itself. Justinian is desperate for a general who can take command in Italy and turn the tide of war.
No.
544 AD. Belisarius is recalled from Disgrace.
No, this is bullshit. If I'm Belisarius, come on, man. I understand the loyalty for your country, but god damn, man. If my country kept doing that to me, I don't know if I would be there for them. I honestly don't know if I would be there for them. I love my country, but if I'm gonna get shit on and then, you know, lose my fortune and live in disgrace, hell, I could live in a lot of places and just be done with it. It's just
given back his old command in Italy. But the emperor has no troops to spare, and Belisarius's bucellari are still in the east. This time he will have only 4,000 recruits that he must hire and equip himself to reinforce the demoralized army in Italy. And in Totila, he faces a far more dangerous adversary than before. He is poorly resourced and has been ungratefully treated by his emperor.
Yes.
But Belisarius loyally marches to war again, in what will prove his final campaign. Big thanks to legend.
I respect anyone that can put aside stuff like that, because I'm not one of those people. You know, doing it for country and all. Yeah, I shouldn't say that. Maybe I could, but it would be really difficult. This is really good. I'm going to hurry up and jump into the last one, because I really want to know what happens. Belisarius, you know what he needs? He needs Oudinot, the one of Napoleon's generals, who I will never forget. Oudinot is the best person ever in the history. He just needs to send, like, have Oudinot transport back there, transport back there, and then send Oudinot out first. Oudinot gets stabbed or something like that. Everyone cheers and they're like, okay, hey, we know we're gonna win. 36 shots that man took. I'll never for Oudinot for life. I want to get that tattoo. Okay, I'm going to end this here, and I'm just going to jump right into the last video. So, thanks for watching. Have a good day. Have a good night.